Hello, and my name is Pete Rushmer, and I'm your host today of A Half Dozen Things podcast. A Half Dozen Things is a podcast for business owners just like you. Whether you're an underdog hungry for success, or you're already smashing it but want to continue to level up, we are here each week for you to get insight and learning from the very best in the business. No fluff, no BS, and no self-proclaimed gurus talking about how easy business or life is. So I'm joined today by Brian Sagaseta, MD at Chiltern Distribution. Really pleased to have Brian on the podcast today. We met at Truckfest. We were introduced by a mutual acquaintance or friend, Natalie Goodson, who runs Robert Goodson and Son Insurance Brokers based in Peterborough. I've had some dealings and known Chiltern for a number of years, having, from my background, listeners will know that I was previously at Volvo, and you've got a bit of history with Volvo. Most of the Scanias now, though.
A bit of a mix. The Volvos are coming back. We've just purchased 10 of the new iSafe vehicles, so we've had 7 of the 10 come in. We've got 3 arranged to come this week. So.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And so I'm going to ask Brian a bit more about those things. We've prepared a few things for us to run through. We're going to talk about the background of Chiltern. We're going to talk a bit more about why they're different and the pride in the brand, because I've always admired how important the brand is at Chiltern, and why that's so important, and how we instill that through the drivers and through the team. It's something that I think is really important. We'll talk a bit about what Brian likes about the sector, and also the things that might piss him off a little bit, as well as how we can improve the desirability, because ultimately what it's all about is making a transport sector or a fleet sector that is a desirable and great business to work for overall. So Brian, first of all, tell me a bit about your background. What is it that you've done? Sort of, what did you do before Chiltern?
Well, we're going back some time now. So I first got into the transport industry back in 1998. And to be honest, it was an off-chancing. It wasn't something I wanted to pursue. It wasn't something I wanted to get into. But literally at the time, previous to the transport, I worked for a company called ARI International, which was at the duty-free shop at Eurotunnel. So I did an internal auditing with them over there. The fire took place, everything shut down. So I found a part-time job working nights for a transport company called Doxby International. So I went in as a night shift clerk.
Wow.
So that was back in 1998. Doxby was bought out by Norfolk Line. So from there, Norfolk Line had an office in Valencia. So I relocated from Norfolk Line Hythe, over to Valencia. From Valencia, I did a year and a half there, then moved from Valencia over to Whittlesea when they shut the office down. So hence I ended up here.
Wow, Valencia. So like speaking Spanish and everything?
Yeah, completely. So I was born in Mexico. I moved to England when I was 9. I couldn't speak English, so English is my second language. You couldn't tell nowadays, but yeah, it's literally came over here not learning. Even to the States, I think I remember going to the school. We had to do an interview with the headmaster. Mum said to you, he's going to ask you a load of questions. Make sure you're polite, answer back. And no word of exaggeration. He said to me, "How are you?" And I kept on saying, "I'm 6 years old. No, 8 years old. I'm 8 years old. How are you?" 8 years old. So that's where my English was at that level compared to where we are now.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. That's such a cool story. And okay, so obviously, right, okay, so loads and loads of questions sort of off the back of that, I guess. So one of the things that I find particularly interesting around the transport sector, actually, and this is a question that's a little bit off-piste, but so from a diversity point of view, it's not a very diverse sector. Average driver age is 55 years plus. We have to do some work on that. And it's very predominantly white male oriented.
Yeah.
Obviously, being essentially a native Mexican coming into the UK, how do you how have you sort of found that? Has it really been any different for you? How do you feel? You know, because there's a lot of stuff goes on about people speaking about migrants and that kind of thing. How does that sort of impact you? What's your outlook on that?
Well, the migrant thing is obviously differently something that's been ongoing for a number of years, and something that's got increasingly harder. By the time I managed to get to the transport industry, I was fluent in English. I lost my accent, my twang when I was in secondary school, because I soon realised if you're the odd one out, you did get a bit of a backlashing. Yeah. But no, really from that side, I've never encountered any issues or any problems. to be honest, in the industry, it's been pretty good. Not something I noted before, but the migrant situation, definitely an issue.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I think the more we can do to diversify the sector, the better, right?
Agreed.
Because,
agreed.
I read a book recently by Matthew Syed, who wrote Black Box Thinking, and it's called Rebel Ideas, and it's about the more that we increase diversity in businesses, the more different ideas we have, and then the better the ideas, the better the outcome. So amazing. Okay, so Norfolk line back to Whittlesea. We've come from Valencia, Spanish, through to Norfolk line in Whittlesea. Which, for those who don't know what that is, I'm Peterborough based. Whittlesea's right by it. It's literally the corner of the fens, isn't it? Literally gateway to the fens at Whittlesea.
It was interesting. I've never visited the area before. Obviously, grew up in Kent. Valencia was great. Loved it. First day, I drove into the depot at Whittlesea, and if you know Whittlesea, you know where Norfolk Line or DFDS is now. I thought, what the hell have I done here? So one extreme to the other, but a great company to work for. I left Norfolk Line at the time. Just before it was bought out by DFDS.
Okay.
And that's really how I met Paul Jackson, then the managing director, the owner of the Chiltern Cold Storage Group. So that, again, was a bit of an off chance. At the time, working for Norfolk Line, and bearing in mind I've come from Dockspeed, who was a privately owned company. Andy Ingliston, again, another great guy. Coming from private to corporate, I soon realised that as much as corporate is really good, but it felt like a bit of dead man's shoes. So for career progression, it was pretty much set. It was already set out for you. So I had the opportunity then to go back to a privately owned business, which I did with Chiltern Cold Storage Group. How we first met was I left Norfolk Line. I worked for a company called TLF UK Limited. We set it up here. So whilst I was in Spain, we met a couple of colleagues, and we soon found out, obviously, during the certain times of the year, the UK is flooded with a number of Spanish vehicles because of citrus. And they approached me to say, would you be interested in setting up a UK office? I did so. Left Norfolk Line, which was quite daunting at the time. Obviously coming from a very good organisation, setting up something new, completely new to me. Never done it before. I've always had people above me or around me. And I managed to secure a contract to do all the expat foods from the UK to Spain. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out with that company. So the work, I go back to Norfolk Line. They continued to do it. But the reason I met Paul is I was renting some office space and warehouse space for him at the old site, Cold Storage.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The time when I joined Chiltern, Paul didn't have any trucks. He did predominantly vans because he did a lot of courier work and some rigids, but no Arctics. Mm-hmm. And it became apparent back then that he had a cold store with other people's products, and every day other hoardies would come in to take that product out. So we came up with a bespoke solution to offer transport service across the sector.
Amazing. Yeah, and I think that's sort of where I'll have first come across you as well. So I know certainly we first come across Chiltern Cold Storage, which was based over the other part of Peterborough, away from Whittlesea. It was based over in Woodston, big cold storage, that kind of thing. And obviously, the business is now Chiltern Distribution, and Chiltern Cold Storage does still exist, but there was a bit of a separation. What sort of happened there?
Literally, as the company got bigger, we had multiple sites. We had obviously Peterborough as predominantly the home depot. We had a depot up in Livingston, Scotland. We had a depot down at Highbridge near Bristol, the depot we're currently at now at Whittlesea, and also one at Bourne. It got to the stage that we got so big so quickly, we didn't have the infrastructure in place to continue that growth. So we potentially initially looked at, Paul at the time, with John Davidson, looked at selling the company. But on the 12th hour, I think it was decided it wasn't the way forward. It was just apparent that had we sold, the company needed the money to invest to allow the company to go forward. But the people that were interested in buying it would have diminished the brand. So everything that Paul had worked up, and same as John for the cold storage, would have just completely been obliterated because they wanted the cold store space and not the brand. Yeah. So it was decided on the 12th hour that we didn't. Fast forward to 2017-18, we decided to split the company to two. So John Davidson took complete ownership of Cold Storage Group, which is still there, and myself and Paul came over and did distribution.
Yeah, perfect. And that, and then here you are back in Whittlesea again, literally not far.
A stone's throw away from when it all started. So yeah, I'll drive past it every day and I smile to myself. But it's funny how things turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, brilliant. And from a business point of view, then, so you still are involved in cold distribution as
Yep.
well, aren't you? So do you still work together with the
So
cold storage?
we shared customers, especially up to probably about November this year. But if I'm completely honest with everything that gone with the driver situation, the driver shortage, and people still saw us as the same company, it was time to try and break that mold. So I made the decision that on the 1st of November, pretty much any clients that we shared, we broke away from. And I think it's benefited us both. We both want the best for Chiltern going forward. Obviously, two separate companies, I know, but we've both got different images. But yeah, we still work together. We still co-share customers, but two different completely businesses.
Fine. Okay. And then, so the next question, I guess, is talk to me a bit about that sort of management buyout. Paul is now, he's still partly involved in the business, but
yep. So
what's happened there?
So February this year, the plan was always when we moved over here, Paul had an exit strategy, and I've been very fortunate. Paul's been, we've been together. Let's say we are like a married couple over 16 years, and that's been great for me. We're very much in sync, and it's always been a great relationship because we're synced. But it was always a plan over here for Paul to retire, and we did it initially a year early because it should have been February 2022. But with COVID, everything that went on, it felt that the time was right to get it done. So the agreement was always in place, and we completed the management buy in February this year.
Amazing. And okay, so and how's that sort of been for you? Obviously, you know the business, but has there been sort of any challenges for you around that?
Yeah, it's been the hardest part is, as you say, Paul is still around, but initially the first few months, probably the first 8 months, Paul went driving. I was very fortunate to be in a position that Paul left me to do the day-to-day running, but he was always there on my shoulder for advice, guiding, and challenging. The bit that I'm finding difficult now, I think, is that relationship. I've not quite found the person there yet to challenge me, even though he's still around, but working together so closely for that amount of time, it's proven to be difficult. In a way, I think it's a lot easier for me because I was doing the day-to-day of it. Responsibility-wise, don't get me wrong, it is a completely different ball game, a headache, a worry, a constant threat. Knowing we employ 70 people, the fact it's not only those 70 people, that they've all got families, so you're making sure you're providing across the board, making those decisions. That's probably been the hardest aspect. But the day-to-day, literally, I'm thankful it's been the same.
Yeah, awesome, fantastic. I think that sort of leads us on to sort of the next area. I was going to talk to you a bit about your fleet, because when we sort of had the transfer, we've moved away from the branding has evolved slightly, and I love the yellow and the blue. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. But most of all, people will associate the Chiltern brand with the fleet because you've got an amazing fleet. Those that come to Peterborough, I know you're regularly at Peterborough, which I recognise as Truckfest. I know that many others across the country who don't necessarily recognise Peterborough as Truckfest. So I don't know if you go to the other ones at all, but no, Peterborough is sort of the main staple, isn't it, for me?
We've been to Newark once, but no, we tend to go. It's on our own doorstep, so we don't go for any business. It's just for a social aspect. It's good to get the name out there and recognise we are Peterborough based, and to let people know who we are.
Absolutely, and the fleet always look fantastic.
Thank you.
I think they're a credit to you. I think it's clear that you've got brand standards and brand expectations around the quality of the vehicles. You've always got premium product that you're using. I remember, I'm not sure how much you'll smile at the thought of it, but I remember when you took the dark blue dual clutch at Volvo, Volvo as well. I don't know how that went.
Well, we've only just got rid of it, in fairness. So it went this year. In fairness, I think at the time it kind of put us off the Volvo because we've not really had Volvo since. But in fairness, the new truck is coming along. It's good. But yeah, it's mixed reviews.
Yeah.
But that vehicle's just gone off fleet.
The dual clutch, I think, was the expectation was that it'd be a fuel saver, but what in reality they built was a racing truck, which is, from a productivity point of view, is amazing. But it's a fantastic vehicle and great to drive, great to drive. But nonetheless, ultimately, it comes down to the pounds, shillings, and pence, and the fuel consumption and everything else.
I think we were comparing from the old Volvo to the new Volvo. We've increased by about 1.8 miles a gallon.
Wow.
So I think as a saving, that's about nearly £9,000 a year per vehicle that's gone from the old style to the new.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It's a big saving.
And that's just margin. It's just margin as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no extra. Okay, you've got all the aids now in the vehicles that assist the driver, but comfort, everything like that, it's made a significant difference.
It's huge, isn't it? It's just big numbers when you start to improve fuel consumption like that. Okay, so how many vehicles are there in the fleet at the minute?
We have 45 Arctics, 3 Brigids, a 7.5 tonner and 4 vans.
Okay, brilliant. And what's the fleet mix like from a branding point of view?
So predominantly has been Scania for the while, but we've predominantly Scania at the moment, got Volvos, Mercs and 1 DAF left. Yeah. Our ideal brand, and credit to Paul, it's always been Volvo and Scania. They're the 2 brands that we want to rely on and stick to because they're so advanced. Yes, they're a more premium product. They do cost more, but the reliability, the services that we get from Volvo and from Scania are fantastic. There's no minimum downtime, so that's why we tend to stick to those 2 marques. You mentioned we are proud of what we do. We tend to go for the premium vehicle to make sure it's driver retention, especially nowadays. Long before the driver shortages was made public, we've always tried to have the best in class to enable to attract the better caliber of driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the vehicle's such a big thing, and the brand as well. Certainly, what I've admired about from a distance what you've been doing, and what I recommend with a lot of our customers is around understanding. If we get into the mind of a driver, a lot of people think it's about the pounds, shillings, and pence for the driver's wage. And whilst pay is important, it isn't the be all and end all. It's about how you're treated, getting that right. It's about making sure people like to be associated with a brand, and that's the understanding. Having worked for Volvo is understanding that association, because Volvo is a premium product, Scania is a premium product. People like to be associated with that, and in turn, with Chiltern being a premium brand and such, the branding being so important, and the delivery and the condition of the vehicles and new vehicles, drivers will want to come and drive for you in turn as well, won't they? So how's the impact been for you over sort of COVID, Brexit, drivers? What's that sort of look like?
So it's been challenging. So let's start with COVID. So predominantly what we do is we specialise in 3 temperature ranges. It's been perishable goods and also pharmaceutical. But predominantly our business was based on food service. So that was obviously school sectors, pubs, and that kind of sector. And also the aviation, we did catering supplies to major airlines. So as soon as COVID struck, it was literally a flick of a switch and everything stopped. So that was the first challenge. We made some decisions then to diversify. We never really played at the retail sector because you've got your predominant players out there that do retail and they do it really well. So it's not an arena we wanted to enter, but it pushed us slightly down that way. So we started working with likes of Kalina and other such people that allowed us to get into that sector. Started doing bits that we'd never do in the past, like pull bulker trailers. It varied. But at the same time, that moment in time where you hit the pause button, it allowed you to reflect. For years, we'd always said if we only had the time just to stop, gather our thoughts, gather the momentum, stop it for a second and restart it, it was a perfect opportunity to do it. And here we are, the other side of it. So that was the first factor. So even though, yes, it was damaging initially and we had a tough probably six weeks, we restructured, had a look, changed the way that we were doing things and got stronger through it. The driver situation has been probably more difficult. We've always wanted to be above market rate when it comes to salaries. But as you know yourself, the market rates all depend on what people are paying at the time. And that's not to undervalue the drivers. It's whatever people are paying. We always wanted to be above. And that rate of pay has been very stagnant for a number of years. So it's a positive thing that's happened because it's allowed everybody to get to a suitable rate of pay. But now what customers realised is that cost has been passed down long for many, many years that wherever you try to incur additional costs because of salaries, vehicle costs, fuel, it's always been very, very difficult to get that rate back. But with what's happened, again, it's been a bit of a positive. Being in the limelight, it's made people realise the importance of what we do in the sector.
Yeah, and certainly the value of transport, I think, has improved, hasn't it? And I've seen, we work with a range of different operators, and we've seen sort of the day rate work as it's improved. Things have just improved, and people have valued it a lot more. And there's nothing like a little bit of scarcity of something to sort of push things back up. But it'll all come around ultimately, I suppose, in the price of the goods that we're going to buy.
It is, and that's what people forget. It's got to go somewhere. So we've like everybody in the industry, has increased costs, but that will go down to what we pay in the supermarkets, because it's got to be passed on. You look at the level of fuel at the moment, again, that's rocketing through the roof, but we're paying for it because we have to pay for it. Again, that's got to be passed on. So unfortunately, whatever we gain at the top, we end up paying for it at the bottom.
Brilliant. And I'm just going to blindside you with a cheeky question then. What do you see progress looking like over the next sort of 1 or 2 years? What do you see sort of happening, and how's this situation, because how's this going to evolve, do you think?
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor a Half Dozen Things podcast. At Flagship Partners, we take road safety really seriously, and we're your road safety partnership. We help transport companies with compliance and training across their businesses, including first aid, driver CPC, and other transport management services. So if you're FORS accredited or you want to improve your operator compliance risk score, give Flagship Partners a call today.
From the driver aspect, luckily, as you said, the fleet that we've got and the drivers that we've got are a good core. I think that we've probably leveled to where we need to be, but the only thing we need to do as an industry and also across the board is make sure that year on year we apply those rate increases, and also that we move everything in line with inflation. As long as that happens, I don't think we shouldn't be in this situation. In regards to the driver shortage, it's a difficult one because you touched upon it. The average age of the driver, 55. It's not a sexy industry to be in, is it? Really? Who wants to be in a truck 24/7, 5-6 days a week? It's tough, but we do need to get younger people somehow into the industry to show them it's not a bad way of life. But it's like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it, isn't it? Unfortunately.
No, exactly. And I think my goal in us doing this and having these conversations is if we take the fleet sector and transport sector into the 21st century, we start to communicate with people, actually, by putting this interview out on podcast, on YouTube, it shows to people actually you've got a really personable manager with learning opportunities, great vehicles to work with, a sort of exciting outlook, and being at the sharp end of the business sector, that actually we have got, whilst it's not the best for everyone, I still stand by the driving role for a single person who hasn't got too much responsibility or is happy to sort of spend the week away. It's a fantastic job. You get to see the country. You get to, if you're doing European work, you get to see Europe. It's it's a really great opportunity to go out and see the world. And I think it's such a down-to-earth sector as well, isn't it? It's a great sector to operate in.
Definitely, and fundamentally, at the end, I think what the drivers like is that they're not. They're their own boss. As long as everything's getting done on time and delivered, they're left to their own devices, which is good and bad in some ways. But.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go to a few things that you. I asked you as part of the preparation for the podcast 3 things that you love about working in the transport sector.
Let me look at my notes. Yeah, okay. To me, daily challenges, it's a buzz of the industry that you're in. No day's the same. Okay, you come to work, you've got the same amount of vehicles that you do, but every day's different. Yeah. There's nothing like coming in, you have a bad start to the day, but at the end of the day, making sure everything's ticked off, everything's back home, everything's been delivered. I love the buzz of it. Christmas time, people dread. If I'm completely honest, it is. It's difficult, but the buzz of it gets me going in the morning. There's no day given that at the moment I'll get up and suddenly say, well, I don't want to go to work. I love coming. I love what I do. It's challenging. The adrenaline always kicks in and it keeps you active. So that's one big thing, just the daily change of it. Diversity I've put on here. It is the people that you meet in the industry. I think I said before, it is either you love it or hate it, but the people that are in the industry obviously love it and do it for a reason. So the people you meet, the challenge you face together, and how we collectively come together about it and do things together. That's another bit that I love. It is the people that you meet, and in general, it's really good. That's 2 bits.
Yeah, that's fine. Might just be 2.
Yeah, predominantly, but yeah, it's just general. It's a great, to me, it's a great sector to work in. It's just that no days the same.
Yeah, I think one of the things is it's a true sector where it's about problem solving all the time, and it's challenges. And also, I think there's a great feeling of satisfaction by making sure that things happen on time and that you're really a big part of that cog, making everything go round really, and making sure that your bit's done.
Very rewarding. It is rewarding.
Yeah. No, amazing. Okay, cool. So we'll move on then. Tell me about the things that piss you off most.
Well, so the first one is recognition. I think of what we do in the sector and the industry. I think people just assume that things turn up at the supermarket, shops and stuff like that just by magic. But they're not. Obviously, the driver shortage has highlighted the importance of what we do, which is great. At least it's highlighted it, but it's probably a little bit too late. It's been ongoing for several years, but at least it's highlighted the importance of what we do. So the recognition bit is one thing that definitely does frustrate me, because as an industry we're not glamorous, I suppose. People just sideswipe it. I wish there was a bit more recognition in what goes about it, especially the driver's aspect, what they have to do to get product to places. Another bugbear of mine is they say that it's not recognised as a professional service for a driver, which again is a frustration for me. So obviously the CPC qualification came out. Why introduce it if they don't see it as a professional service? Because it is. You're asking somebody to take £150,000 of the kit out. They're a professional driver. So the fact that people don't recognise it as a professional sector, that frustrates me.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
That's
fine. I was going to pick, whilst you have a look at that, I was going to pick up on a couple of bits there myself. I think we talked a bit before we went sort of live with the recording about CPC and that kind of thing. I think that the challenge is that as an industry, things, I think, because we allow the industry has become commoditized so often, it's around cost all the time and reducing cost, that a lot of the professional services have reduced quality as well, which was one of the reasons Flagship wanted to get into CPC, for example, because it had been commoditized and sort of the value of it had been sort of taken away. And I think the challenge is around, if we recognise that actually the driving role is a professional service, like you say, 150 grand bits of kit, you can tell they're the pride and joy of the Chiltern fleet. That actually you're not just going to let any Tom, Dick or Harry get into one of those vehicles and drive it. And that's sort of the thing is that my belief is one of our biggest challenges as a sector is the acceptance of, and I'm not saying this is from a Chiltern point of view, but I mean as an industry sector from other companies certainly, that there's a willingness to just accept and make do with low standards, for example. I think if we look to raise the level of standards, raise the bar, raise the professionalism. I've literally just done a recording on drug and alcohol testing, and I speak to transport managers all the time who are shit scared of putting in drug and alcohol testing, for example, because they think the drivers are going to run away. Well, the challenge is actually, hang on, you should be proud to work for this company. We are this company. This is the standard we uphold. And if you want to work for us, then that's the standard that we expect. We believe in road safety, and sort of turning it on its head and going, actually, we want to go back to a time when drivers were the knights of the road and are the knights of the road, and it's very important that the professionalism's there. I think
it is. You go back 15, 20 years. It was you were. If your dad was a lorry driver, you wanted to be in a cab. You took your children out of you now. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, the health and safety aspect where you can't take children in cabs and stuff like that. It is very difficult. I understand that, but I don't know how else we're going to get people back into that industry as young people. You mentioned about drug and alcohol testing. We do random testing here, which we need to do. Drivers are fully aware that happens, it goes on, and it is random. But to me, it's a clear conscience. What the last thing I want to do is for allow a driver to go out on the road that's under the influence of anything, and heaven forbid something happens, it's on my conscience. So it's an important factor, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. I know that much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think compliance as a whole shouldn't be taken lightly. It's such a challenging part of the sector, and I think one of the things, and this sort of leads back to the recognition, I think, is that I think the challenge we've had, particularly with Amazon and such like this overnight of I'm going to buy this £10 widget and it's going to arrive tomorrow, free delivery, no thought for the cost of storage, picking, transportation, etc., and it's just sort of gone. But then also the recognition of actually the level of legislation that's involved in ensuring that road safety is maintained. It's just unbelievable, really.
You've hit the nail on the head. You think about it, it's not just the next day. You look at can deliver by 10 p.m. that night. But I think going forward, that just-in-time aspect will have to. I think we'll see probably less and less of it, because I think we come to expect it. I mean, we all do it. You look at it, you're buying something on Amazon, and lo and behold, you go, I'll get it delivered that night. You ultimately do it. But I think we need to get away from the sector. Again, look how much things have changed in the last 15 years. Previously, Saturdays and Sundays, minimal shops were open. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, everything was shut till whenever it was. As a kid, you got Christmas present that needed batteries. You weren't going to get to the following week. Now it's the norm. Some things open Christmas Day, some things open Boxing Day. And unfortunately, in our sector, because they are open, we have to provide and deliver. So it's incredible how things change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it's also like the expectation of the range of goods as well that we just expect to have. And I think that's one of the challenges, is that you can have this widget, you can have it in blue, pink, green, every colour of the rainbow. I think there's just got to be a new recognition that's gonna be
or understand by doing it comes with a cost. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So recognising a professional service. Did you have another one there, Brian?
I have. It's immigration. Obviously, as time goes on, we used to do a lot of European work. We don't predominantly do a lot as much as we used to. That's one thing that has been proving very difficult. As a company, we go through all the training procedures. We give training and workshop talks to the drivers about what they have to do, preparing. But lo and behold, now, if you're 3 hours away from Calais, it's a complete nightmare. And if I'm completely honest, that's slightly why we've come away. We had an experience probably a year and a bit ago coming back from Italy. Driver's done all his checks, got to literally from into the French border. He saw the seals had been tampered with, called the police. Police came out, the French police, looked in the back, said there's nothing in there. We were coming back from Caen to Portsmouth, got to Caen, did checks there, nothing on there, get to Portsmouth. They do the test there, and lo and behold, I've got 8 people on board. Now, we followed the process. We've called the people out. But yet we're deemed not to be doing sufficient training, and we're still fined for it. And not only for us as a company, but also as a driver. Because of that, I did lose a driver, because all of a sudden he felt bad. He didn't want to do European driving anymore. I think we need to do something to try and prevent him coming in. What that is, I don't know, but that is a bugbear at the moment. So it is very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be fair. I haven't had much experience to that, but that sounds like a horrifying experience. So that was, the driver's done everything in his power.
We've done, everything we've done, checked. So wherever we can do, you do safe parking, but it's just proving to be more and more difficult. So that is a challenge, probably not more of a bugbear, but it's a challenge.
And what so people listening who aren't necessarily into sort of European work, what are the fines like for trafficking?
Depends on that. So that particular one, I think you were talking about £3,000 per person that's found on the vehicle, and that's to the business. The drivers get a percentage of that. It's crazy. It takes you all year. As an industry, you're not making a great return anyway. It's minimal margins. It's not a sector that you're making 20, 30, 40, 50% profit. It's very minimal. Yeah. So to be hit something like that, it just suddenly makes you think, well, what's the point of doing it? It wipes out your profit for goodness sake.
Absolutely. I was going to say that, if you take single percentage margins in the sector, and I think a lot of people don't really compute that. So, for example, if you make sort of 5% and a single figure, and then you get charged £25,000, you've got to do an awful lot of work and an awful lot of sales to make that margin to be able to afford that.
It's very difficult. So, and I'd understand if you're a rogue haulier or anybody like that didn't pay attention, but the fact that you're proving that you're doing everything you can as a business, and even when you ask the question, what else could I have done, there was no form of response back. I thought personally, for everything that we could have done, we did do training, vehicle logs, everything, even calling the French police and checking at the borders. It's just frustrating to the fact that we were still still penalised for it.
Yeah, it is massively frustrating. And I think that sort of goes all the way through, because a lot of people won't realise that just the level of responsibility that's held as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's so much from a migration point of view, from an overall compliance and operational point of view. People don't realise what's involved in making sure the vehicles are regularly maintained, making sure the drivers' tachos are done. Yeah. How constricting the hours can be potentially sometimes on a business. It's really tricky.
It is. It's tough. It's definitely tough.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, fine. So the final question then, the biggie is what can we do? What can we do to improve the desirability of working in the sector and attract more drivers?
I think we need to publicise it a bit more. As we saw with the driver shortage, it went into the headline news. All of a sudden, we're being recognised, but we need to do something again to try to bring young people into the industry. As I say, it's a sector that's very difficult. I'm trying to tell somebody it's a great job being out all day, all week, all night, or going out during the early hours of the morning because you want to miss traffic. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is a really good sector to work in. It's challenging, it's enjoyable, but also very rewarding. How we get to that point, I'm not too sure. Whether it's more speaking at schools, whether it's advertisement, stuff like that, just so people are aware how that product got from the warehouse or even from the point of manufacture all the way to the shelf, what it goes through. Just highlighting what different aspects of the chain look like.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It was really interesting actually. A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a lady called Angelica Larsson, who's a Swedish female truck driver. She's got a lot of followers on YouTube for obvious reasons. And it was interesting actually speaking to her, because in Sweden there's no driver shortage. There's no challenges around drivers. It's a well-respected profession that's paid properly. And actually, she reckons it's getting to the point where the female driving population is almost, she said, more than 50%. And the reason for that is that they do a really great job of promoting it as a great role, great job to do, going into schools, getting people to understand what they're doing.
Exactly. If you go back to the time, and I don't know whether they still do it at schools, where you've got your career progression, and you said, this is what you want to do. And I know in the days it was like typing a computer and you got a list of what you want to do. Never in my time did anybody say come into logistics, be a driver. But not only that, it's good to start from the bottom, work from the top. Yeah. I've had staff here that started off as office. We put them through they didn't drive, so we put them through the car license, vans, class 2, class 1, and now work in the office as planners. So it's a great industry to get into. From a driver's point of view, obviously again documented, something's got to be done about the conditions. If you go abroad, and that's why a lot of people like to do Europe, the conditions over there are 100 times better. You've got clean services, food is reasonable, everything's freshly made. You get to the UK, all of a sudden you're paying 30 quid for parking plus. The showers are dirty, if you can find somewhere to park. The conditions over here for the amount of traffic that we move aren't suitable. Something needs to be done to improve them. Make the driver's life, okay, yes, we've got high-end kit. We try to look after the best product, but at least make their life slightly easier on the road. I guess that will attract more people in as well.
Absolutely. I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head with the career progression, because I think one of the challenges we've got as a sector is at the very, very top level, and I mean not necessarily like the business owners, the operators themselves, but at the very top level, certainly within government, for example, there's a lot of people who work in the transport and logistics policy side of things that actually don't understand the sector at all. They've kind of fallen their way in. And the way I see it actually is that from a career progression point of view, like you've just said, if a young person joins a decent sized transport company that is willing to work hard, 100%, pretty much every transport company I know will invest in the right people to work. Car license, van, through to class 1, 2, or 2 and then 1 all the way up. Sorry, getting my numbers muddled up there. But it's sort of all the way up, and then you've got the opportunities. A lot of people will be quite happy with that vehicle, that driving role. People might think, oh, do you know what? Actually, then they can become If they don't want to travel, but they've got great driving skills, they can work in the yard. There's fantastic opportunities where people, having done the job, can move into safety roles within the business. You've got transport management, planning roles where you can deal with lots of people, and then always work your way up. And do you know what? If we do that right now and attract the right people in, people might go, oh, but I don't want to just be a driver forever. Well, that's fine. Become a driver, learn the business, understand it, go and work in logistics planning, go and end up, you can end up progressing into our councils and work on, working on the roads and the routing, and because you understand what we're doing.
The daily challenges. That's a key thing. Especially you look at the drivers that we've got that, I think by starting at the very bottom and working your way up gives you great experience. You understand the daily challenges, and also they're the people 9 out of 10 that will come up with that idea that will help. Yeah, so it's all about trying to get the people in at, I guess, slightly younger age, and just let them know, look, it's not just about the driving aspect, it's what goes behind it. You say that the logistics planning, everything, health and safety, but even to Storm, and it's all very diverse.
And it's all vital, and I think it's one of those sectors where everybody's input is valued all the way, from the porter all the way up, from cleaning the floor in the workshop all the way through the business. It's vitally important. Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me on the podcast.
Thank you, Pete.
Really, really appreciate it. To anyone who's listening, if they're interested, find Brian. He's on LinkedIn. Get in touch with Chiltern if you're interested in a driving role. I know they're a fantastic business to work with.
Thank you very much.
So, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
I really hope you loved today's episode, and if you did, please make sure you subscribe and listen out for future episodes too. Please do share it across your social media channels. We hope to reach more and help more people. If you want to find out more about me, my name's Pete Rushmer. You'll find me across any social media channel and my business Flagship Partners, and we're your partners in success across your business. Thank you. See you again soon.